Good day and welcome to Transform Today, a place where we can have an honest conversation. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Well, I hope this video finds you keeping well and managing these strange days that we've never experienced before, at least in our lifetime. Today I want to talk about really just what 2020 has meant for probably a large percentage of the Canadian population and certainly in the world as well, is the financial, spin-off of COVID-19. Well, here in Canada, we know that the national debt has really just taken off like crazy. It's in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and I don't see that changing myself personally. Also, sadly, the hard part has been for individuals and families, loss of jobs, just more debt, personal debt incurred because of COVID-19. And I'm thinking of some of the other issues that even were here before 2020, when I consider south of the border to our neighbor, United States of America. The loan debt down there is in the, trillions of dollars. Student loan debt, and it's becoming a serious problem. So debt in itself can be a very serious issue, not only nationally and not only individually, but also individually. I'm certainly not here to try and address those issues, but I do want to give you some things today, some tips that I've been using in my life to help me in my financial areas of life. Things that I put into practice over the years that have provided me an opportunity to have some stability in regards to finances. One of the key issues that I think people really need to grasp and get a hold of is creating a budget. Giving every single item, every single dollar a name, what you're going to use it for, where it's going to go, and how that's going to be done is a budget. Budgets are obviously have to be flexible. It's a living document. It can move around in shape and form as you change jobs or as you get more income or less income, whatever the case may be. But you really do need to have a budget where you can allocate everything you need. And you need to allocate in the basics. Really, that's where it starts. Food, shelter, transportation. And I think we need to add medical to that, not because of COVID-19, but that's certainly a big ticket item in most households, especially with lots of kids. So those are the areas basic budgeting would be essential: food, shelter, transportation, and medical. And moving forward from there, it is very advisable. Matter of fact, I would recommend it highly, because I have this myself, is an emergency fund. And the recommendation there is, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. So that would include your rent if you don't own a house, or your mortgage, and all those basic costs: food, shelter, transportation, medical, school, whatever stage of life you're in. All those things there you should have. That'd be your goal, to get that in place. First thing above all things is an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Probably 6 months would be even better. And I imagine those that had that during beginning since March have probably fared through less hours or loss of jobs a lot better than those that did not have that in place. Now, this is all doable, by the way, folks. It's doable. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It's not a matter of profession. It's not a matter of position or social position. Nothing like that. It's a numbers game. It's a math game. It's a simple game of math. Now, if you carry a lot of unsecured debt, and I mean any debt that's not a mortgage, for example, credit card debt, stuff like that, car loans. Maybe those are secured, I don't know, but even a car loan I would put in my list as unsecured. All those things you should try and get rid of as soon as possible. So you're probably saying, how can I do all those first two things? Well, you budget it. It's a budget. In regards to your emergency fund, of course, you can't fully fund that until you have all your debt paid off. So you start with a minimum emergency fund, maybe of $1,000. I know that the financial guru Dave Ramsey recommends starting at $1,000 emergency fund, and then you start paying your debts down. And that's really key there, to get that debt paid. And to really get some momentum, you want to start by getting some, I guess, what I said, momentum. You want to start with your smallest debt. You list them smallest to largest, and you pay them down. Don't pay attention to interest rates. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. If you owe $30,000 and it's divided up between credit cards and other unsecured loans or debts, you start with the smallest one. You pay that one off. You keep everything else current if you can. And then you just take the money that you put on the smallest one, put it on the next largest one, and then you can see it's like a snowball effect. The money gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you pay off each debt a little bit at a time. And you pay off the smallest one, and the next one, and pretty soon, before you know it, you will have all your debts paid off. And then you can go back to your emergency fund, grow that to 3 to 6 months, a very minimum 3 months. 6 months would be advisable. The next thing you would move to is, again, depending on your stage of life, you would budget this also, is your kids' education. If you're one to want to pay for their university and you have little ones just born or just 2 or 3 years old, there are many ways of doing that with an education fund that you can find, and good reliable companies would sell those to you. If you don't have a house, maybe you want to have a house, you want to start saving to buy a house. Now, obviously, if you can, the best way is to pay cash for a house, but who can do that these days unless you have, you have a lot of money. So you could at least save for the down payment. And I would recommend the bigger the down payment, the better. That you could do that, and you could get yourself a house if that's your goal. At the same time you're doing that, though, once your debts are paid and you have your emergency fund and you've taken care of your kids, and now you're building towards buying a house, or maybe renovating your house, or whatever you're doing, you're saving money for that. You're paying cash for all this, by the way. Credit cards are done. You've cut them up or iced them, whatever you did, just get them out of your life. You don't need them at this stage, especially if you have all your debts paid off. You really don't. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but that's kind of how I operate. So then you want to take care of your, I guess the word is retirement. I would really recommend you don't depend on the government. See, the government, there's no guarantees. Just look at COVID-19. How in the world is this country going to pay off the billions and billions and billions of dollars, over $300+ billion that we're now in debt? I mean, I can't express this strongly enough. Don't depend on your government. There are great mutual funds to be had. There are great RSPs to be had. There are a lot of tax deferral, things in place that you can put your money in. You've got to budget that too. And my recommendation is you take your family budget, which gets yourself all your debt paid off. You got your emergency fund, and you're rolling along. 15% of a year should be put into a mutual fund, and not all in one fund. Disperse that out over at least 3 or 4 of them, and RSPs, anything that you can use to help grow your retirement. And you want to think long term if you're young, even if you haven't even started one and you're in your 40s, think long term, and you don't touch that. You don't use your RSPs for sure. Absolutely never ever use your RSPs, because if you take your RSPs out to pay a debt or something like that, you'll pay huge tax implications on that. Now, I've said more than I wanted to say about this, but those are some of the tips that I want to share with you. The question is really, how do you spend your money? How do you spend your money? Well, I spend my money in 3 ways. I've been doing this for many years. I spend money, pay my bills, save for a holiday, save for when my kids were little, save for their education, mutual funds, retirement. Even though I worked in the government for many years, and I have a pension there, I don't count on it. It's there, but one day it might not be. But so I spend my money. I spend it according to those principles I told you, in that particular order. I save for the same reason. I always save. I have that emergency fund, best I can have it. It's there, and it's only for emergencies. Transmission goes out of your truck, your car, your furnace goes down, etc., etc. Those are emergencies. And the third place, so I spend, I save, and the third thing I do is I give. I give. And as a Christian, I give to my church for the work of the gospel in the local community and beyond, and I give to wherever God really leads me to give. And the great thing about not having any unsecured debt, and the great thing about having the ability to save some money, is that you can actually give money. And you need to learn how to be a giver. Some people are very good at saving money, and they have a hard time spending it, and really want to be a healthy person, not only spiritually and mentally and physically, but also how we use money. Money is not a bad thing. Money in itself is amoral. It's what we do with it that really shows where our heart is. You can check what someone thinks about others by their bank balance, if you understand my drift there. So I spend money in three ways. I spend, I save, and I give. So there you go. I know these are tough times. I know for many families they just don't have any money, and I understand that. And I really hope that people that have the ability to help others are doing that. Not necessarily by giving cash per se, that might be the case, but for sure in other ways. And I think if you are a follower of Christ and you're listening to this, that's our obligation. It really is. We're commanded to not only take care of the brothers and sisters, that is the people in the kingdom of God, but also those around us. Jesus said, you will always have the poor. And to think of all the ways that we can possibly share of our resources, not only of our time, not only of our talents, but also of our treasure. So I thank you very much for joining me. I hope this has been helpful. I might have been mumbling and all that stuff, but anyways, I'm just really glad that we're here together, and I just encourage you to consider the things that I've shared. Share your comments, be kind, be considerate in your comments, and have yourself a great day. Shalom.